Hello everyone, it's time for part 2. Are you excited? I know I am. Roll the intro.
Hello everyone, this is Champion damn it, I can't see a thing in this.
I'm sorry that I forgot to cover Goose's apology in the previous part. I just totally forgot. It didn't come into my mind at all as I was busy trying to find all my sources and get everything sorted out. So sadly, we won't be seeing it in this part because I'm a weirdo and I have to get everything chronological. But it can basically be summed up as him basically saying, I'm sorry for not adding more people to the list that I needed to criticise and attack for no real good reason other than I just disliked them. So he attacks Liana Kay, Paolo, Game Diviner, that's the same person by the way, and Oliver Campbell and some other guy, and basically says that they're just doing this all for the money and the attention, con artists, etc, etc, and Gamergate has been totally co-opted by people who are just wanting money and they're professional victims, ironically enough. And basically, that rather than what's actually happened is that a load of little scheming trolls have started infighting and have co-opted it through that way. We should just believe him because he's telling us the truth, and even though he can't really back this up and none of his evidence really helps him because it's not really evidence, it's kind of like how JJ Talks and her ilk try to attack Dick Coughlin. It's kind of similar but slightly different. But anyway, we must move on and talk about the doxing of Netscape. Now, Netscape is a GGer. He's well known. He runs Caprulu or Caprullo Radio. I can't pronounce it. It's some kind of Japanesey type word, isn't it? So basically, he called out Goose. I think it was either on a stream or on Twitter, probably both. And Goose was not happy at the fact that what Netscape was saying rang true. He didn't like what he had to say. And so he threatened Netscape. He threatened Netscape with doxing. And since Netscape wasn't going to back down, he doxed Netscape anyway. And in recent chat logs that have been leaked, which you can find on Encyclopedia Dramatica, on Ralph's own article, which is very funny, by the way, it's very funny, you can clearly see here that Goose was just aching to dox him. He just couldn't wait for it. And then this little tidbit here that I quite like. Wild Goose, as it says, 63, Wild Goose publicly stating doxing of Netscape 9. Well, not necessarily publicly, just with his circle of friends. And Wild Goose says, I want to dox that Netscape 9 faggot and kick him off Earth. And then talks about someone's name. And then Nora says, wrong chap. And some people are kind of happy that this shit is going on. And then someone, Genesis, says, I didn't see nothing, Nora. Are you lonely? And then Nora goes, no. So straight away, we see here that Wild Goose was not happy that this Netscape 9 faggot was calling him out on his bullshit. So in order to scare him and to silence him, isn't this funny? Isn't this funny that he accuses all of us of trying to silence him and Ralph and all the others, that we actively engage in censorship because we block people and we report, horrible, disgusting behaviour like rip trolling, that he decides that in order to silence his own criticism, he's going to dox people. That's ironic, isn't it, Wild Goose? It's okay when you do it, but not when we do it. It's one rule for thee and another for me, isn't it, Goose? And then he says again, I'm going to dox Netscape. I've made a decision. I always get my man. Yes, you always get your man. It's not hard to dox people whose names are publicly available. And then he makes a self-deprecating joke about up his butthole. And then Nora asks, why are you doxing him? Yeah, why is he doxing him? And then Wild Goose says, because he's spreading lies about me and refusing to retract or qualify those accusations. Well, he wasn't spreading lies. And yes, he did refuse to retract them because why should he? If you won't retract your statements, why should we? You know what? I don't even need you to retract your statement about Cult Vivian and Lily Feng and all that. You can totally double down all you want. I don't care. It's your opinion. But why do we have to when we have our own side of the story? That doesn't quite make sense. And besides, how do we know that you're even telling the truth here? I think you know he's not telling lies. You're just telling that to Nora to garner some little sympathy for you, aren't you? I've shown an abundance of patience with him. I'm sure you did, Goose. I'm sure you did. Now it's time for the wagon to park on his lawn. And then later on, like 6:14 PM, he says, I fucking nailed him, Ralph. Well done. well done, you dox someone again. And then he talks about how he's putting his shit together, and Ralph, however, tells him not to post that shit in there because, yeah, you do realise that this shit could get leaked, potentially. Oh, we wouldn't want that to happen now, would we? And then Nora says, never give your full name and the state you live in, and then show your face. Indeed. But hey, you know what? Some people like to be open. And then Seattle for Truth comes in, interestingly, and says, the thing about Netscape, he's a good guy and he's willing to admit he's hatched some dumb ideas. And then Seattle says again, at least he tries to contribute. And then Wild Goose asks, to what? Cancer? Now this is the most interesting part of the whole exchange. Seattle for Truth defending someone who he's not really meant to be with. You know, he's not on his side as such. But I guess Seattle's more neutral here. And then he says something I can only describe as a sick burn is, he does more than your bitch-ass Goose. And then Wild Goose laughs at this because it's true. More what, he says. And then Seattle goes, you ain't done shit except fuck with people, which I can respect in its own right. And then Wild Goose says again, cancer? See, Seattle's right. All Goose does, and he's the same with Varelo, John Kelly, all the other people affiliated with GGR, and who else? I guess it's the BWC. Apart from Seattle, who does do genuine work, even if you don't necessarily have to agree with it. They don't do shit. What do? All they do is sit around causing trouble in Gamergate, and then complain when people fire back, and then complain again that Gamergate is like co-opted by professional victims when they're the ones going around attacking people and have derailed it completely, especially since after SPJ. And then Seattle says, but for you to judge anyone on what they contribute is laughable. And Wild Goose again, playing dumb. That's what he said in his apology. He accused Cult Vivian of playing dumb. Yeah, this is what he's doing now. And then Seattle, realising that he's just going to get fucked with, says, you're not even worth it. And Wild Goose thinks he's won. And he says, well, he attacked me, and I respond in kind. Yeah, you see, he attacks you for what you're doing, so you dox him? You don't go on his show and debate him or just insult him or something? Write an article, you just go and dox him? What kind of psychopath are you? Or sociopath, whatever. There's not very much of a difference, is there? What kind of person feels attacked and then doxes? He didn't even dox you. If he doxed you, I might have some sympathy for you in doxing him back. But he didn't dox you. He attacked you. And you think it's lies, and so you dox him. Jesus Christ, that escalated quickly in your mind, didn't it? And then he says it's time for him to grow up. Time for him to grow up. So you're gonna dox him? You're insane, lad. And then Nora tells him to back off, and Ralph is wondering, like, why is there an argument here? Well, it couldn't possibly be because Goose is a doxing cunt, eh? And then Wild Goose says, just because he made some gay videos pontificating about a hashtag doesn't make him immune to backlash. And then Seattle says, I didn't say he's immune to backlash or criticism. I'm just saying Netscape has done some dumb shit, but at least he tries, unlike most of the faggots in GG. I couldn't agree more, Seattle. I couldn't agree more. And then Wild Goose says, well, he definitely made his dumbest move yesterday. And even Ralph had to concede that that's a fair point. He does try to do shit. And then Wild Goose says he doesn't disagree. And then Ralph was saying, I don't have a lot of sympathy because, he rushed out to attack me on KIA. Oh, fuck off, Ralph. What? He insulted you and now you have no sympathy for him getting doxed. Really? How far has that Stockholm Syndrome infected your brain, Ralph? That is the person who doxed you. He released your credit card details. You do realise that, right? Or do you just forget it? Jesus Christ. Apparently this guy's honest to you. Despite the doxing, despite his glee in doing so, Netscape still didn't back down. Goose, despite doing your favourite pastime to silence people, you still failed to silence him. Because he's not scared. And why should he be scared? Anyway, let's move on. Netscape was doxed. And then things kind of quietened down a little bit, but then liberal Lunacy decides to join in because apparently she was sick of being asked to take sides by everyone. I mean, she just wants to be neutral. She doesn't hate anyone on either side. So she writes an article about the drama that's been going on because there seem to be still largely just arguments, but no real events. And this is her article on the Ralph retort. And the title of the article is called The Line in the Sand by Liberal Lunacy. Shannon. Disclaimer, I will not name names in this piece as I don't know the names of everyone involved and I feel it would be unethical to act as if I did. All opinions expressed herein are my own and do not necessarily reflect those of the owner of this site or his staff. Yeah, we'll be getting into that disclaimer in a little while. The past few weeks have been a sad state of affairs. The fractures in Gamergate, the former hashtag consumer revolt, now Hugbox Echo Chamber. I had to stop you right there. If there's a fracture in Gamergate, if there's disagreements going on, then it's not a Hugbox Echo Chamber, is it? Why is Cult of Vivian arguing with Ralph? Why am I arguing with anyone? Usually friendly, not like how you guys argue with each other. Then it's not an Hugbox or an echo chamber. In fact, it's a dormant hashtag that's not really going to be used very often unless something drastic happens over at social justice or in the gaming press, okay? So it's not an echo chamber. This whole drama is testament that it's not an echo chamber. Have become gaping chasms. A girl tied to Gamergate and Not Your Shield decided it would be a good idea to kill herself. The effects of this have been far-reaching. You can already feel and see the distaste and the whole lack of empathy that she has for Lily and Ashton and anyone who she doesn't necessarily agree with, or people who are suicide victims. After the event, many people, clinging on to the small amount of fame garnered through the hashtag movement, took it upon themselves to use the suicide as a possible platform to gain more attention and notoriety. When these attempts were called out publicly on this website, not even by the owner of said site, a veritable torrent of butthurt began. Butthurt, really? Or was it a backlash? I don't know. I mean, I just don't have your clarity, your oversight in all this shit, you know? But hey, whatever. I mean, you're just parroting the same bullshit that they've been parroting. I mean, using suicide as a platform to gain more attention. I mean, I've only seen one side do it, and it's certainly not Vivian or Campbell. You just can't see anything like that. But hey, you know, you don't want to take sides. You want to be neutral. That's fine. You know, that's absolutely fine. After the event in question, I didn't really react publicly. No, you didn't. As I knew my opinions would be unpopular. Seeing as now I'm writing on a site that is unpopular with these people anyway, I will now express them. You could have just expressed them on Twitter, but were you too scared to? Really? You knew your opinions would be unpopular, so you didn't do it until now that you got a bit of backing. Really? I call bullshit on that. I find it hard to have sympathy for someone who chooses to commit suicide, especially by jumping in front of a train. Not only did she have no regard for the people she knew personally that would be hurt, as in her friends, family and boyfriend, but she also had no regard for the trauma she most likely caused to the poor train conductor, bystanders who saw the event, EMS, fire and police crews called to the scene, clean-up crews that had to clean her remains from the train and tracks, and coroners who had to take the rest of her to the morgue. Now, it's clear to me that she has very, I'd say, backward views on suicide, and this is one of the things that made this particular drama personal to me. I'm not gonna use this to garner sympathy or feels or anything, and I'm just gonna... It's not on the side, but it's really to do with this little paragraph here. You know, I had a little break from YouTube that lasted about 5 days, and that was because I'd recently lost a family member to suicide. So, you know, I've had 2 family members, not just that other one in question, who have killed themselves. And to read this and to see the attitude espoused and shown by the likes of Wild Goose and his mates, it just angers me because these people don't care. They don't seem to have a shred of empathy or sympathy or just a good bone in their bodies, it seems, and when it comes to shit like this. They don't like the people who broke the news, and they're just trying to find anything that they can to smear them. And if that means using the death of a girl, they will. And what Liberal Lunacy did here, it just shows, one, she's projecting, we'll get into that, and she completely doesn't have any idea what suicidal people go through in order to kill themselves. She does realise that the reason why they kill themselves is because they think it would be a benefit to the human race and a benefit to their friends and family if she were dead. She was depressed. Depressed people do not have a high opinion of themselves. It's not a selfish act, actually. To them, it's a selfless act. Their suicide is to make everything else better, not just for them, but for everyone else, because they're not rational. But never mind. Also, what brings a person to kill themselves if no other help is able to sort everything out for them? If they can't talk about their problems, if they can't take medicine or anything, just death is the only release. And then she finishes it with, plus, I figure she got what she wanted out of the deal. She's dead. Well, you know, I'll invite you to my funeral and let you, you know, read a nice speech about me then. I'm sure you'd get the house on fire, mate. Now, in the aftermath of people called out for their perceived grave standing, which they were, it's not perceived, it's quite clearly there. You obviously either just blocked out what's been going on Twitter, or you're just narrative bullshitting, you know. They and others who claim to steadfastly stand for ethics, above all else, decided to do something I find very unethical. Oh, what is that? What, call out your mates on their bullshit. That's unethical. They went after the livelihood of the man who owns this site, not by attacking articles that they found unethical, which they did, but by reporting to AdSense an article they knew would be an easy target, an article bringing to light facts about a paedophile. In doing so, they show that they think it is okay to take down stories that are justified in order to get revenge over something that hurt their feelings. Using these tactics, and possibly having an expose about a paedophile deleted, they're indirectly helping said paedophile because they don't like the person who owns this site or the people who write for it. Yeah, you see, they accuse you of something, greystanding, because you actually did it. You guys were greystanding, you guys were doxing people, you were being cunts to a grieving boyfriend, and yet you have the cheek because Ralph had his AdSense reported and he had an article removed. You automatically assume it's these people. I've heard of the Operation Wreck-It Ralph thing. I don't know who started that hashtag. I don't know who's using the hashtag. I don't know if it's SJWs or just people who hate Ralph. You do not know who reported the AdSense or who reported that article, but you're just going to accuse Vivian and Paolo and all the others, the people that you hate, especially Vivian, because it suits the narrative, it suits the story that you're making in this article right here. You just want to smear them further. You're trying to make them all look like horrible, evil SJWs when your very friends are trying to silence people by doxing them. So, how dare you try and say that they're trying to help a noted paedophile and maybe the dog fucking was rumour and hearsay, but the paedophilia definitely wasn't. How dare you say they're only indirectly helping her? They're not. You don't know who bully reported him. You don't know that. And you can't claim that they're helping Sarah Butts. It wouldn't be in their interest to help Sarah Butts now, would it? Indirectly does not make this empirical claim that you've just made better. It makes it worse almost, because you're not being fully honest. Well, helping a paedophile is the absolute last straw for me. Yes, and helping doxers, greystanders, trolls is the last straw for me when it comes to you, Shannon. I have tried very hard for a long time to be neutral between the two factions that Gamergate seems to have splintered into. So it's not an echo chamber then. You just said it was an echo chamber hug box, yet there's two sides constantly arguing. By the way, you're part of the reason. You're part of the problem why they're arguing. But you're just either too deluded or just put it in the back of your mind so that it doesn't seem to be a problem for you. And really, you're neutral. We'll see about that. Now that the issue has been pushed, and this seems to be the line in the sand that these people have drawn, no, more like the line in the sand that you have drawn, I know which side I will figuratively stand on. No, you have stood on this line since the beginning. I cannot abide directly or indirectly helping someone who would gleefully prey on children, and you need some citations that they're the ones doing this. If this is where we are now, where feelings are more important than justice and truth, and supersede any modicum of ethical standards on their part, regardless of feelings about the writers or owner of a blog website, who, by the way, try and act like journalists, he calls it a tabloid, not a blog. We are no better than what we set out to fight against a year and a half ago. You see, you could give us all this moralistic bullshit, but you do not bloody follow your own moral code. You do not. You just don't. I know I'll get plenty of hate for writing this, and I'm prepared for that. I don't mind, though. I know I will sleep at night with my conscience clear. Yeah, you will. How many people who ended up aiding a predator can say the same? They didn't aid a predator. If anything, whoever it was that reported Ralph is just doing this for the lulz, or maybe they just don't like him, but they're not helping a paedophile. And who knows, that could have been taken down by anyone. But let's go back to the chat logs, because Shannon's not being completely honest here. Because early on in the chat, she appears, and she says, I'm going to be on tomorrow with Stephen Crowder at 7:30 AM. I'm so nervous, I could puke. And then Nora goes, no, 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 for some reason. And then Ralph goes, congrats, Shannon, might write a short hit on that or something. Although he's huge, so he doesn't need help drawing a crowd, haha. Happy for you, though. Nice job, Shannon, says Master Ninja. And she smiles and says, haha, COV is going to be so jelly. And then Guitar Anthony says, good. I wonder who COV could be. Is it Call of, I don't know, Variety or something? I guess that's something I made up. Call of Juarez? Oh wait, it's Juarez, isn't it? No, it's Cult of Vivian. That's who she means. See, you're supposed to be neutral. Bear in mind, this is before all this. Or at least during, before she said anything. This is before she came out in support of Ralph. Why does she care about Cult of Vivian, a liberal's opinion on her going on Stephen Crowder of all people? Stephen Crowder. Why would Cult of Vivian be jealous of that? She doesn't even like Stephen Crowder, I assume, being a liberal. Why would she be jealous of you? going on there? I just don't get it, you know? Why would anyone be jealous of you? Why are you so interested in Cult of Vivian, Shannon? Why do you hate her so much? And why are you trying to say you're being neutral here and you don't want the shit? And then she continues and says, I got my Ellie Prizeman hoodie and I actually got a discount because I'm going to wear it on videos. I bet Cult of Vivian didn't get a discount. Ralph says, she's a dumb cunt, so no, probs not. Probably paid double. They actually look kind of nice, but I don't know about those colours. And then later on, Shannon says, I couldn't pass up a discount like that, you know. So, again, it's beginning to make a bit more sense why she'd make this article and fling those accusations. It actually makes it even more cowardly that she wouldn't mention any names. Why doesn't she want to mention any names? It couldn't possibly be because these chat logs kind of incriminate her, right? Right? I mean, everyone else has mentioned names. What have they got to lose? What has Shannon got to lose? A good reputation? And then later on, she says something that probably explains that whole suicide paragraph. And I'm not going to mock her or anything, because I do understand why she's saying this. As much as I was being a little bit callous earlier, I think we should at least, you know, try and have some good feelings towards each other in our time of grieving, as anyone knows the pain that people go through when someone commits suicide. And this is following a conversation about Goose's first article when it was about to be published, and she said, sorry, that just hit a little close to home for me. Just found out an old friend hung himself a few days ago. And a lot of apologising. There was probably a bit of a mistake in the chat, as well, Goose didn't want to appear like he was laughing at her, and he wasn't. He was laughing at somebody else. And she says, I know you weren't. And he says he was going to throw in the typical BWC video, but he linked it instead. And then Shannon says, I'm not going to get sympathy or anything by mentioning it, but thanks you guys for your condolences and everything. It means a lot. And then Ralph says it is a tough situation. I do think Goose had a right to post about that Viv, although it's very hard hitting, especially since it looks like she violated the wishes of Ashton and the family. As it turns out, she didn't. And yeah, you had the right to say that. At the end of the day, it's like, is it the right thing to say? And also a question of quality. I mean, Goose even mentioned in his apology that the quality of the article was later questioned, it seems. Although in these chat logs, it doesn't look like they seem to care very much. But then again, that's just my opinion. I'd tell him to maybe post it elsewhere, you know, if I was running something like this. Because I don't like the idea of accusing someone with shoddy evidence of using a suicide for attention. And as Guitar Anthony does say, it's his site, his call. We can think he made the right one or the wrong one, but at the end of the day, it's his call. He made the decision to publish it, and what's done is done, and he can do that. Ralph can do that, and Goose can write the article. I personally would have maybe published it elsewhere, but hey, that's just what I would do. And then Shannon continues, though it could be argued that the article is also violating that privacy as well, just playing devil's advocate, not saying I think that. That's true, probably was. I know I wasn't asking anyone to take it down or censor anything, so that I was going to back off a little bit if people were making jokes. And they were making jokes, and you sat back and let them. Hey, you know what, they can make a joke about it, but then the amount that Ashton got, it just didn't become a joke anymore. It changed into just bullying. I always like to say that you can joke about whatever you want, and you can do so, but eventually there comes a point that if you take it too far, doesn't it become bullying? I don't know. You can claim that I'm not for freedom of speech, but I'm just saying, you do need standards and there are limits. As Shannon said, she reached her limit, her line in the sand, and so did I. But you know what? They can do what they want, the consequences will still be there, you know, they'll still happen. But I think we've covered all we can now. I think that these chat logs have raised a few eyebrows and maybe answered a few questions. So let's just talk about perhaps the last part of this little drama. It's not as big, and it's kind of funny, really, because it didn't really take off. And this was Goose creating some kind of fake GoFundMe in Vivian's name in order to make her look like she was trying to make money out of it. So, again, it calls into question, what are you really attacking her for? Is it just politics, or is it personal? I personally think it's a bit of both. They don't personally like her, and they don't like her politics. And it's vice versa. They don't like them either, you know? But it just seems that one side is being more ethical than the other. And I know I've recently got a few criticisms about bias. Maybe I am biased, but I was objective in my research. I went to everyone that I possibly could. And at the end of the day, all I can see is one side being worse than the other. Yeah, I do reckon that Campbell probably should not have been linking his YouTube channel because, you know, that looks more worse than Vivian just using hashtags. It's just like, she's got to communicate it to someone. But anyway, that was probably a non sequitur, and we have to move on. So, what about that GoFundMe then? Well, it's basically some kind of silly thing that Goose did. I don't know if it was for a laugh or for the narrative. Who knows? I don't know. It's Goose. And it could well have been anyone. It might not have been Goose. It could have been anyone from someone who doesn't like her, just for a laugh, for any of the BWC lot or GGR lot. It's basically trying to get a Vivian James headstone for Lily. To be honest, that would be pretty cool, a Vivian James headstone. But, hey, it's the thought that counts, and the thought is not good. And in it, you can see that they want $5,000 for a headstone. Is it really that much for a headstone? I don't know. And it fraudulently says that it's created by Nikki, which of course it's not. And surely she would say it's Nicole. I don't know. And it says here, a couple of weeks ago, my best friend Lily Feng decided to leave this world prematurely due to the lack of ethics in video game journalism. So immediately, you know it's taking the piss. You know, she would never have written this if it was her. She was a vulnerable person who just couldn't withstand the pressure of being an oppressed gamer anymore. In honour of #Gamergate and Lily Feng, I'd like to raise enough money to have a headstone crafted in my image so that it can be placed on Lily's grave. I can't think of a more appropriate headstone than the statue of Vivian James. Please donate and spread the word. Keep sending those emails and follow me on Twitter. Cult of Vivian. I'm trying not to laugh because it's just so... laughing at it, I'm not laughing with him. But, Jesus Christ. Did he genuinely think people would donate to this? He was too... Firstly, the description is far too obvious that it's a fucking troll. You're supposed to be an experienced troll, Goose, or whoever did this. Surely you'd make it legit, right? And she doesn't think she's Vivian James, but... never mind. I just thought it was a humorous thing to show. It shows the lengths they would go to either create lulls or to drag her name through the dirt, because they do think she's doing this for the attention and the money anyway. But the fact they have to actually create a problem in order to moan about one, it just sums them up, doesn't it? Perhaps it sums up this whole kind of drama. They're just creating problems in order to moan about them. And with that, I think we might as well end it, because there's not much to talk about now. Everything has pretty much been covered. And as usual, unless something absolutely crazy happens, I'm not going to be covering this again. So, until next time, I'll see you all later.